But I just couldn't afford to go to school full-time, which Georgetown required for doctoral students. After 3 years on Capitol Hill, I was asked by the White House to serve as a political appointee in the administration of President George H.W. Bush. By the time my security clearance came through, however, I had spent only 9 months at the Department of State before President Bush lost his re-election. On January 20th, 1993, the day of President Bill Clinton's inauguration, I received my pink slip. I took off to Brazil on an extended hiatus, and it was there I was able to put aside my Type A personality and immerse myself in the Brazilian culture. The colors, the freedom, and the food were memorable, but more notably, I learned about incredibly joyous people who often had nothing, or the countless people I came across in cities of the state of Minas Gerais who often didn't know where their next meal was coming from. I saw them carry themselves with incredible grace and richness. I traveled to the Amazon, among my top 3 places I had always wanted to visit. On my first night, after trying to quell my own disbelief that I was actually sleeping outside in the Amazon, I was attacked by a troop of flying cockroaches. Later in the evening, an anaconda snake decided to pass through our open-air boat right next to me while I was sleeping. On my second night, a furious crocodile chased me, my traveling companion, and the Amazonian Indian we had hired to take us out there. This was an exhilarating experience, and I began to learn that I could be remarkably calm in adverse situations. I took my watch off in the Amazon and never put one on again. Brazil had taught me the meaning of life and helped me to answer the question of what I wanted to do with the rest of mine. In June of 1993, I inevitably returned to Washington. I looked for meaningful work, but in a down economy, I reluctantly had to accept a job lobbying for many issues that I really didn't care about, such as financial derivatives. A few years later, during the Clinton administration, as the Monica Lewinsky scandal was starting to percolate, I was asked by the Republican National Committee to serve as a commentator on television, and days later I made my first appearance on MSNBC. Within weeks, I was espousing my opinions and debating some of the country's most brilliant minds, including Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz, O.J. Simpson prosecutor Marcia Clark, and former Labor Secretary Robert Reich. I later provided political and foreign policy commentary for Wolf Blitzer on CNN, an opportunity that I enjoyed immensely. On Wolf's show, you had to deeply understand the substance of the debate and not concern yourself about what your hair looked like or the type of collared shirt you would wear on air. I co-wrote a best-selling book with Dr. Julianne Malveaux, Unfinished Business. A Democrat and a Republican take on the 10 most important issues women face. I swept into the media world, and for nearly a decade, I worked with producers, agents, managers, speaking coaches, and style consultants to mold myself into great television. At one point, Henry Champ, a television personality, described me as fit to be a war correspondent after we co-anchored the inauguration of President George W. Bush for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and stood in freezing rain that relentlessly blew horizontally for hours. There was no heater at our media booth, although there was supposed to be, yet I never complained. I was grateful for the historic opportunity, so there was no reason to complain. Little did he know that I considered his comment to reflect the thick skin I had grown from all the televised shouting matches I endured.